Hello, this is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. You know, there's a lot of tradition surrounding Christmas, and I've often wondered what is the origin of these traditions? How did they get started? Who was responsible? Things like Santa Claus. How does Santa Claus relate to the birth of Christ? And how about the idea of Santa Claus coming across the sky in a sled pulled by reindeer? How did that story start? And the idea of getting a coal in your socks, maybe as a kid, I always was afraid of that. If you were naughty, you might get coal in your stockings in the Christmas morning. Or you might get presents if you were good. What about the tradition of the Christmas tree and the decorating it and the putting up of lights, the star in the Christmas tree? What do those things mean, and how did they get started? Well, let's take a look at some of these things. For that matter, why is Christmas Day itself right on the 25th of December? Why did they pick that particular day to celebrate the birth of Christ? Back in the day when Christ was on earth, the Roman Empire was in control. Christ had been crucified and then rose again to give hope for the new faith called Christianity. People now wanted to celebrate the life of Christ by celebrating his birth. When was the best time? Many of the Roman pagan celebrations occurred near the end of the year. Large crowds gathered, so the Christians felt it would be also a good time to celebrate the birth of Christ. It was also a celebration of the solstice, the shortest day of the year. Each day from that day on brought longer sunlight hours and a new hope for renewal and a new positive beginning for the new year. And therefore, it was decided that December the 25th would be the celebration day for the birth of Christ. So, December the 25th became a very important day in the Western Christian world, and it only naturally followed that this day would be marked by other important events. Two of the most influential leaders in the Western world in early days, Charlemagne and William the Conqueror, were both crowned on Christmas Day. In American history, George Washington made his famous crossing of the Delaware River that gave new hope to the Americans in their Revolutionary War against the British. In 1812, Christmas Day, it was declared the official end of the War of 1812. And Christmas Day was when a great slave revolt broke out in Jamaica, and it was the beginning of the end of slavery. Andrew Jackson, the American president, pardoned all Southern troops and people who had fought against the Union in the Civil War in an attempt to heal the wounds and hard feelings of the Civil War. In 1914, Christmas Day, German and Allied soldiers stopped shooting at each other from the trenches, walked across, shook hands, sang songs, and in some cases exchanged gifts, and then went back to their trenches the next day and started to shoot at each other again. Apollo 8 occurred on its famous first-time manned spaceflight around the moon. And Christmas Day was when Mikhail Gorbachev, the Russian leader, declared the official end of the old former Soviet Union. So how did the idea of Santa Claus and good old Saint Nick get tied in with the idea of Christmas and the birth of Christ? Saint Nicholas was an actual person. He was a leader, a saint in the Christian churches in what is now the area of Turkey today. In those early days, Christianity spread across Europe like wildfire. There were many festivals that celebrated the birth of Christ. And as Christianity spread, so did the legend of Saint Nick, who performed miracles as he traveled the countryside, helping and giving his wealth to the poor and sick. He performed miracles, restoring the lives of sick and poor children. Part of his legend told how he punished naughty children with gifts of coal in their stockings, and good children were rewarded with presents. Saint Nicholas became the patron saint of Russia and Greece, and guiding and protecting merchants, sailors, repentant thieves, soldiers, students, and children. In the United Kingdom, he was called Father Christmas, and by English speakers in North America later, he was now called Santa Claus. He was particularly popular in Holland, in the Dutch colony in the New World they called New Amsterdam, whose name was changed after the British took over from the Dutch, and the British changed the name from New Amsterdam to New York. What was the origin of the idea of Santa Claus being pulled by reindeer across the night sky? No one knows for sure, but the idea may have originated in the ancient Norseman legends about Thor, the god of thunder, who flew across the sky in a chariot pulled by two goats. And at the same time, reindeer were thought to be symbols of good fortune and joy, and hence maybe the putting together of the idea of reindeer pulling a sled across the sky started. How did the Christmas tree get started and is so important in Christmas? And what about the star that we always put on the top of the tree? Evergreen trees keep their leaves or needles all winter long, and therefore represent perpetual life and immortality, and God's eternal love. And the star placed at the top of the tree symbolizes the angel that announced Christ's birth. There's one more interesting but little known thing about Christmas, and that's how did the idea of putting up so many Christmas lights, how did that get started? Well, I talk about that in another video in this same playlist. We went on a bus tour, a city bus tour of Christmas lights. And I tell you about the origin of Christmas lights. And maybe you want to look at that in that playlist if you haven't already seen it. In the meantime, we're rolling on down the road. If you like what you saw and you'd like to see more, hit the subscribe button. That'll tell you when we're putting more videos on the internet. So long for now, and Merry Christmas to you all. You can find other videos on Christmas and to other places I've traveled to on the internet. Just Google, as it says here on the top, at Don Barnett 5090, click my name and hit the word playlists and scroll down. Each playlist has several videos. And one more thing, if you hit the subscribe button, that will notify you when we're putting more videos on the internet.